This episode is more death metal. Hey everyone, welcome to the Trendcrusher podcast. I'm Peter K, aka Trendcrusher. As you can tell from the title of this episode, the featured band is Atræ Bilis from Canada. They have a new album out today. It's titled Aumicide. A lot more on that shortly. Before we get to today's episode, I want to give a shout out to the Hyderabad and Kolkata based act Warmarshal. They've released a single which is from their soon to be released album. It's titled Shell Shock. Here's Shomik from the band telling us more about the track.
This is Shomik from Warmarshal, and you are going to listen to our new single, Shell Shocked. It is a term that originated during World War I to describe post-traumatic stress disorder before PTSD was officially recognized as a mental illness. Rest is up to you, respected audience, as how you interpret and understand it.
and that was Warmarshal with Shell Shocked. Do keep an eye out for them. Their album will be out sometime this year, so yeah, do follow them. As always, link in the show notes. Atræ Bilis are a band that I've been following for some time now, and their latest album, Aumicide, is a fucking banger. I really enjoyed it, and I think they've like upped the ante in all aspects of it. It's not an easy listen, just a warning. But I think those who enjoy death metal will, especially dissonant technical death metal, will really enjoy this one. So I had a lengthy chat with David from the band about the album and a lot more. Here it is. Hi, David, or should I say good day, mate?
How you doing, Peter? Good to chat again, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of strange and it feels kind of weird also when I thought about it, is because we last spoke 3 years ago for my radio show, which I was doing at that time, Fistful of Metal, and this was soon after the release of Apex Apian. And so much has changed. But then before we hit record, we were talking and it felt like it was just like last week or so we were talking, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because a lot of time elapses, but I think that when you get to kind of check in with people that you've grown to know through conversations and stuff, it really doesn't feel like so much time has passed because yeah, as I said, you kind of get to know each other. So yeah, in some ways it does feel like an eternity, but in some ways it does feel like just yesterday that we had a chat together. So
Okay. So I must ask, I mean, we're talking literally a week before the release of your second album, Homicide, which I'm guessing again is a word that you all merged together. So I think dive into that. But
Sure.
how does it feel now that the album's all set to release and I guess like merch and everything else is all ready?
It's like a relief, really, more than anything else. I mean, anybody that's been working on any project for an extended period of time gets really anxious not being able to release anything. It almost feels like you've got a ceiling over your head and you can't really have your creative freedom until you've let that project go. So it's a big stress relief. It just feels like it's almost akin to having something on your chest that you've wanted to say for a long time and you finally get it out and it's like, oh my gosh, I just feel like the weight of the world's being lifted off my shoulders in some ways. So that's kind of how it's feeling for me personally anyways at the moment. It's just, we've been sitting on it for so long and we've been writing this material for so long that it's like, oh, finally, if we can get this out and work on the new stuff now. So yeah, it's nice.
Okay, so I have to ask then. I mean, I know you're prepping up for tour and we're going to talk about that, but just like the mastered files or the recorded version, when was the last time you actually listened to Homicide?
Oh, in full?
Yeah.
Like as a listener? Oh, wow. It's probably been I would say at least 2, if not 3 months at this point, which is strange because it felt like it was all I was listening to for months and months and months and months and months. During the mixing of the record in particular, and then I try and listen to things to death just to make sure that I'm genuinely really happy with it. And at that point of listening to it, it really is like your favorite album in the world because you get to put everything that you love about music and condense it into a 30 or 40-minute experience. And when you do listen to your favorite record, it feels like you never get sick of it. So it's not that I've got sick of it and that's why I've stopped listening to it. I've just been excited about other stuff that's coming out and just kind of forgot about it. So yeah, it's probably been 2 to 3 months, but it's interesting even just listening to single songs off the record as content comes out. We had a video clip that came out for Inward to Abraxas, and we recently did a guitar and bass playthrough. And even just listening to those songs on their own again, it gave me a fresh perspective of the sound of the band, and it was actually a lot heavier than I remembered it being before, which I guess is a positive. So yeah, I don't think I'll listen to it again in full until probably release day. Maybe we'll have a celebratory beer or something and listen to it. I'm not sure, but yeah.
So, okay, I have to tap a little more on what you said. And this is just for like other creative people, in addition to just like musicians listening in. At which point, and since you talked about it as a project, so let's view it as that. At which point do you let go, right? I mean, we live in a digital age where you're possibly till the last second or last minute can tweak or make changes. And you talked about just like that's all you were listening to, right? Like, how do you kind of, at which point is it like, that's it, we're done, we're not listening to it more? Or if you can talk about, at least from your personal perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's easier for me to answer that when it comes to ending the creative process, and if I can comment on that, it'll make answering it a little easier. But to deal with that, it's just deadlines. If you don't set a deadline, you'll go forever. And that's not to say that it's a comfortable deadline, but without setting deadlines, it's just impossible. And these projects need to be coordinated with other people. It's not like we did everything on our own. We flew out to Montreal to record with Christian. We had artwork to coordinate, and of course we had $20 Spin's release schedule that we had to satisfy as well. So it usually takes maybe 6 to 9 months of forecasting to understand exactly what everybody's timelines are, and then fitting in your availabilities between your own commitments, such as touring and any other things, any other interpersonal commitments that some of the other members may have, and just setting a deadline and just working your butt off to make sure that you can kind of get across the finish line. But yeah, I mean, if we didn't have deadlines, we'd just be rewriting songs and just trying to rewrite better albums before anybody else even gets to hear it. So I think that, yeah, deadlines it's the only way to make sure that anything really gets done.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you this later on, but let's talk, since we're in the flow, about actually flying down to Montreal and recording with Christian Donaldson. And he's literally, I think, in the last couple of years, I would say, if not longer, become the go-to guy. So anything I think that comes out of Canada either is mixed, mastered with him or recorded with him. You guys actually did Apex Apien, which was mixed and mastered with him last time. So what was the kind of factor that kind of said, okay, let's fly down? Take me through that entire process, pre-recording and actual recording also.
Sure. So Christian impressed us so much with his work on Apex Apien that we were very confident that if we gave him more allowances and more capacity to work with the sound of our band, that the project would only be bigger and brighter and heavier. And so it made sense to reach out to Christian to see if he wanted to record us and produce us, as well as just mixing and mastering. He was really excited to do it. We were really excited to do it. His prices were really, really reasonable. And I'm not sure if Christian helped us out there because he likes us and likes this project or what, but I just simply don't think that there is any other producer that we were curious about that came anywhere near Christian on all fronts, and we just like the guy so much. And so I can't speak on behalf of the other members, but I've just always personally been such a huge fan of Cryptopsy, and there was such an inspiration and influence on me from such a formative age, that I still get giddy thinking about not just meeting Christian, but being in his space and learning from him, and just observing his wizardry. He speaks out loud when he thinks, which is amazing, because it's kind of getting a front row seat to just this, prodigy mind, which I just love. I can't say enough good things about Christian. So yeah, we reached out to him. We had a video call, and we just spoke about our expectations, and he's, was incredibly confident, and yeah, there was no second guessing. We didn't, we knew what he was capable of because of his work with Apex Sapien. I mean, just to put things into perspective, the first time we ever heard a mix or master from Apex Sapien, we were quite literally blown away. It was like 99% there. It was phenomenal. So working with Christian was a blast. We really hope to work with Christian again. His family is incredibly sweet. His friends and his circle are immensely positive. Just yeah, I just can't say enough positive things about that whole circle of friends out there. And Montreal is just an incredibly cool place for record shopping and eating and hanging out. It's like the Europe of North America. So any excuse to get out there is great, and then recording an album on top of that's like a bonus. So yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and thanks to social media, and I think you guys did put up some stories on Instagram and stuff, it kind of gave you a glimpse into the entire process. And yeah, why not? I mean, like, when you get, I think, to work with someone like Christian, and like I mentioned earlier, right, just from the body of work that he's kind of worked on, in addition to Cryptopsy, hell, I think it becomes like a no-brainer of sorts, right, to kind of work with him.
Oh, it's nuts. I mean, he's just sonically, he's so good that he hears things that I don't hear. I've told friends about this. I'm not sure if I've spoken about this in other interviews, but just the tracking process alone was so high fidelity. So we would be looping certain sections to make sure that, guitar parts and passages were just like super, super, super tight. And I'd be sitting there and I'd be like in this state of meditation, just repeating these riffs, thinking like, how could I get any tighter? Like, I've never played this type before, and it's still not, like, we're still recording. Like, what is going on? And I would meditate into the click tracks to the point where I was visualizing this like internal clock. And this internal clock felt like that scene in A First Hope, the Star Wars movie, where the X-Wings are just kind of like down the trenches of the Death Star, and they've got this one opportunity to fire this missile into the opening of the Death Star. And then as soon as they fire it, and it just like it hits that click track that I'm just like listening in the back of it felt like in my body while I was recording. I then hear Christian tap the space bar and go, got it, got the take. It was incredible. I've never had that experience with death metal before. So even the tracking was just, it felt like I was in another world. It was incredible. So highly recommended to Christian. Yeah, everybody support the man, support the man's family, and go see him play. He's the best. We love you, Christian.
Yeah, and unfortunately, due to relationships, or strained relationships, I may say, at some point between India and Canada, Cryptopsy were actually scheduled to play in India a few months ago, and that got cancelled. So hopefully, sometime down the line, when Cryptopsy are doing another tour this side of the world, it'll be really fun to see them live. Oh, Pedestal, I think I'll catch them in Canada, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good excuse to come over here. We saw them. They passed through Vancouver a few months ago, and they were on fire. They were just so tired. With all the touring that they've been doing, it seems like they've gone everywhere, supporting their latest record, and they're just sounding tighter and tighter and tighter and heavier and heavier and heavier. And yeah, I mean, it's if you want new Cryptopsy, if you want old Cryptopsy, it's just they're firing on all pistons at the moment.
Okay, so, and yeah. I'm not sure if you know this, but Saudi Arabia, since you said they've been playing all over, right? Cryptopsy were the first metal band international to play Saudi Arabia ever.
Crazy, isn't it?
And they beat Metallica by a week or so, I think. So I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, I mean, this last year they've just been smoking. Like they came off. I think they played their last show somewhere in Europe, and they got off stage just to be told that they won a Juno, which is like the Canadian, national music award for heavy music. It's amazing,
Yeah.
So I'm really happy for them. I'd love to see them as big as bands like Lorna Shore and stuff at the moment. And yeah, just incredible band, incredibly important band too. So yeah, it's amazing to see.
Okay, we've talked quite a bit about the entire recording process. I have to add a few notes before we kind of play a track from it. And I want to kind of see if at least what I'm hearing is right. But you guys did up the ante on Aumicide, right? Like production-wise overall, and just like there is some kind of, how do I put it, atmosphere or vibe of sorts that is just far more sinister. That's what I felt listening to it. What was that one song when you all kind of tracked it or recorded, just going back to working with Christian, where you guys knew that like, fuck, this album is something different, or this is a progression way ahead from Apex Sapien?
I mean, I personally had that moment before we worked with Christian. I mean, Christian definitely brought it to life, but I think I had that sense of that sinister vibe and like, when I was listening back to the demos. So typically the process is that we'll record, live drums at a local studio, and then I will record demo guitars. Miles will record demo bass, and then we'll record demo vocals in the rehearsal room. Then we'll send them off to Christian. We've got all the scratch tracks ready for the recording process. We've got all of our click and tempo maps out. So it just makes things a lot more efficient. So the demo process is a really good time to just kind of finesse little details in the songs. And it's like a practice run for recording the album before you go in with somebody that really knows what they're doing, basically. And it's around that time that we practice listening to the album with different song sequences as well, because lyrically we need to make sure that the songs or our lyrics fit the songs in sequence, being concept records. And I think it was the first time actually that we listened to the album, or I listened to the album in sequence with the vocal demos. It was very rough. It was unmixed, and I was listening to it just lying down in my headphones in bed, and I felt scared. It was the only other time I'd felt scared listening to a record was when I first heard Deicide's Legion, and when I first heard Dark Throne's Transylvanian Hunger. And I was very young when I heard those records. And I wouldn't say I've always been chasing it, but I just felt that I would just never get that feeling back. It was just a juvenile exposure. It was just like the beauty of youth. that I always treasured. But I certainly felt just beaten into this same feeling that I only recall from 20. Well, okay, maybe not 20, but 15. Oh, maybe it was. Yeah, it was 20 years earlier. And yeah, I think that was the time when I was like, Jesus, like this really is dark. Like there really isn't any genuine hope or faith or happiness to this record. I mean, there are moments of melody and there are those dynamics, but yeah, I think the overall vibe of the songs was really human during that demoing process. Yeah.
Okay, so if you had to kind of single that down to a song, I know it's tough considering it's a concept album, and we'll kind of get to that in a bit, but if you'd kind of give everyone a taste of that, what would the track be?
It would definitely be the closing track, Excruciate, Incarnate.
Okay, awesome. So for those who haven't heard the album as yet, here's the closing track from Aumicide, Excruciating Incarnate.
Disappointment
Okay, that was Atræ Bilis with Excruciate Incarnate of their latest album, Aumicide. Now, I know we last time also discussed the entire process of the album and how you'll kind of record it and stuff. This time around, was there any difference in terms of writing the music and then coming up with the concept? Or was that like side by side, you all kind of worked on it?
I think the process that we established during Divinity Nihility and Apex Apian was repeated here. And I think that, the more that we adhere to those systems of writing, pre-production and recording, the more focus we get. And, it's not necessarily that we like being in our comfort zone doing that, but I guess because we're so focused with how that system works, it lets us have a very clear vision of what does and what doesn't work musically, I think. And it also offers us some internal QA. It lets us, especially with the demoing process, if something isn't working, that's fine. We can scrap it and we can try again. If we don't like the arrangement of one of the songs, if we've got demos, even if we've got Luca's drum kits and it sounds really choppy and really weird for me to like take one section and extend it over here just to hear if the flow works or not. Nobody else outside of the band is going to hear it. It's just for our own reference. So without having too much ego about it, and just trusting in trying to be in a position from an audience person listening to the songs and listening to the album as a cohesive whole, I think is the benefit of this process that we've come up with. So there wasn't too much that was different. I mean, obviously Miles has joined the band, which is different to the other recordings that we've done before, but he's just fell into place so effortlessly that it didn't feel that there was any teething issues or any friction. It's just that flow has just continued. So no, and I think that we'll probably continue to do the album, the next album or the next singles or whatever it's going to be the same way, because I mean, truth be told, we've already got almost 3 songs that are musically airtight and some of the heaviest things that we've ever written. So I think the longer that we're doing it this way, the better we're going to be at it, the more efficient we're going to be, and the stronger musicians it'll make us.
Okay, and I definitely have to ask you, right? Because one of the things about listening to Atræ Bilis is the entire concept that you'll have. And first of all, thanks for sending all in the promo copy, like all the details about the album and stuff, because I feel like with the lyrics, it kind of just helps to kind of go through it also. But from what I've at least gleaned from your press release, and I'm just going to kind of read it out, the album or the concept of the album is test specimen is subject to experiments in faith removal. And this is a bit where I need to understand, with intermittent simulations of hell to the self from multiverse, to sever the self from multiverse, which results in the genesis of a new era. Kind of run me through where everyone's head was at. How did y'all kind of come up with the entire thing?
So I guess, kudos to 20 Buck Spin for getting those press releases out to everybody. That wasn't our hard work. That was the label's hard work. Yeah. So thanks, Co. Okay, so to break it down, I guess the human spirit, now more than ever, we're very aware of mindfulness, and positive manifestation, negative manifestation. The idea of this album is what would happen to the conscious collective and, the collective manifestation if there was not only zero positivity, but zero faith, zero God, zero spirituality. And how would you achieve that? How would you mechanically design that outcome. And that's kind of like the core idea of this concept. How do you do it? Well, okay, you could take a test specimen, humanoid, that has a spirit, has a human spirit, and you could put a gate up inside of its perception so that it never understands any sense of comfort, happiness, love. Okay, how do you do that? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could just ingress its nervous system with a painful simulation. So its nerve endings feel like it's on fire. Its eyes feel like it's just seeing a blinding light. It's got a deafening tinnitus ring. It's just in this constant state of agony. It's beyond hell. It's an archetyped hell. What would happen to it? And that's what the album's about, you know? So, you know, there are questions like what would happen, but the idea is these experiments would be performed with the powers of being able to manipulate, you know, the collective into a whole new era of a faithless, godless sentience. What was going on through my head when that was going on? I mean, I'm trying not to get too personal about things, but yeah, in some ways, I think some people are probably already kind of designing their own life to live in those ways. So we just took it to the nth degree, and you know, with some artistic liberty, started exploring a very intense world with those yeah, I guess the right words here be yeah, just diving into a world that is just it's completely removed from anything that we currently understand or currently experience.
Thanks so much for sharing all of that, David. I mean, I know it's not easy, and especially with an album like this, right? One of the things I always question or ask bands is how comfortable are you like putting out music or putting out your lyrics, right? Because the moment it's out there in the world, then it's up to the listener or the person who's on the other end to kind of interpret it or put it their own way. And sometimes it's really hard, right? When it's like really personal stuff. But I'm guessing like it's a concept, so it's not too much to leave up to
Yeah,
interpretation.
I mean, not only is it a concept, but you know, there is definite artistic liberty here. I mean, the our album title is, you know, it's a made up word of two words, for crying out loud, you know. And if I genuinely gave a fuck about what anybody else thinks about like where I put my personal energy, like I don't know. I'd be crippled with anxiety and I'd probably have agoraphobia, and I just don't actually care. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm playing music with my best friends because it's good for my mental health and I enjoy doing it. And other people clearly enjoy it because, you know, I mean, we're chatting from opposite ends of the world. So to me, it's a positive. Not everybody's going to love everything that you do. Not everybody's going to understand everything that you do. Some people are going to be like, you know, armchair professionals and critics, and that's fine too. But, you know, a lot of these people aren't doing albums and they're not taking risks and they're not trying to push the envelope with like, you know, creative output. So I don't know. I don't really, yeah, I don't flirt with any of those ideas or anxieties. Um, you know, I really don't think of myself too highly in the sense of like being an established, you know, guitar player or lyricist or, you know, any of those things. I just do this because I just fucking like it at the end of the day. So, you know, lyrically too, everything's, you know, from a third person perspective, you know, so we kind of, I hope anyways, mitigate some of that cringe factor of, I feel this way, you made me feel that way. Like there's none of that stuff. It's which is like, for me, the most horrible thing. I mean, it really kind of ages a singer mentally when they're using music as a vehicle for emotional. Well, I don't even know if it's emotional catharsis or if it's somebody just kind of not really being able to strain some other things that maybe they want to talk about in therapy. And that's not to say that there might be other projects down the path that aren't death metal where those things might be expressed, but there's a definite discipline in this band that we try to adhere to. So yeah, this just isn't that project for that. So I think that also helps kind of separating the personal from the professional, so to speak.
But okay, I mean, and I'm only broaching this because you said about what people think, right? Do you feel, and especially in 2024 that we're talking, right? You don't have, the big kind of like MTV or big media vehicles covering metal, right? You still have it to, websites and stuff like that you need to kind of fill in. Does it matter what these websites write about or what they think about the band? Like, and again, I'm talking from a personal experience.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm really not the brightest person when it comes to marketing. I think it would really help if there was somebody in the band that had that type of background in education, but I'm not. I could be completely wrong here, but to me, it kind of seems like the biggest thing to really push a lot of branding, whether it's music or whether it's a restaurant or whether it's something else, is a lot of the time through influencers. I mean, you'll see a lot of these magazines taking more appreciation to some outputs from some bands because, these other big name people with an exponential amount of followers have hyped something up. That goes for a lot of the top 10 lists for every year. And, it's my observations anyways, is that is a huge constituent to it. I think social media is part of the picture here. And it wasn't when, MTV and radio and, larger recording advances were out, before the internet was really driving a lot of this stuff. But then too, also, I think there were a lot more risks taken back then. I mean, like if we shoot right back, to the 60s and the 70s, like just think about how eclectic some of the biggest songs in history really were and how unique they were. And like some of them were going for like 8-9 minutes. Like somebody tried to put an 8-9 minute in front of anybody now, even in their phone. Attention spans are increasingly reduced. So I don't know. It's a combination of things now. I think the most that we can really do is just like, as much as we abhor social media and as much as it just kind of zaps us personally, just try and find some depths of energy somewhere to just treat that as just like, okay, it's just part of the job. It's just something that we have to do, because if it was up to us, we simply wouldn't. We'd be writing music. We'd be listening to music. We'd be doing the music part of the music 24/7. We wouldn't be doing anything else. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. It's definitely very nice when certain websites and magazines and interviewers like yourself reach out and want to chat. I don't know. It's I'm not sure if this band has got world domination on its agenda to the scale of bands like Metallica. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you've seen the cover art. We know that there's a realistic our audience may be certainly more marginalized than some of the other I guess more marketable kind of brands that are out there and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I try not to think about those things too much and just kind of treat this personally, anyways. Just treat this as just an avenue for me to just kind of do what makes me feel happy. And if anything else comes of it, then it's a bonus. It's cool. It's an additional life experience that comes with it. But we're also learning, and the bigger our team gets, and the longer that we do this, the more mature I will get with those aspects of the band, I'm sure. But if it was up to me, I'd be oblivious to everything going on outside of my musical sphere and just be kind of locked up, just riffing all the time. But, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
No, I mean, it does to a certain extent. And you're totally right when you talk about the influence of like influencers and social media and stuff like that. I feel like, and when I look at it, because I'm a self-confessed music nerd, right? If you think about it, the influencers or people on social media are no different than the people who wrote for like Rolling Stone and Enemy and all the various magazines back in the day, right? It's hilarious to read some of the reviews that bands like Led Zeppelin and everyone else got back in the day, right? They weren't understood.
yeah,
And especially
yeah.
like going back to what you were saying, you talked about like 8, 9 minute songs. On another podcast that I do, and a friend of mine, we keep talking about how actually at that time people were willing, or even labels were willing, for like bands to take their second and third or probably their fourth album to actually make it, right? Today, if it's not like the first or second album, like no one has a third album. And I mean, you mentioned Metallica. It took their fourth album, which was the Black Album, for them to become who they were, right?
Well, look at Pantera too. I mean, like,
Wait,
how many albums did they have before Cowboys from Hell? But everybody considers Cowboys from Hell to be like their first real album, you
yeah,
know? Um,
yeah. It
yeah,
was
I don't know.
so
It's different for me though, because like I like unfortunately I wish I could relate to a lot more of these articles that have been written, but unfortunately I'm coming at these records and these releases from the perspective of like a guitar player first and foremost. Like it's all about riffs to me,
yeah.
and I don't know what it is, but it's like, and I genuinely I don't mean to be negative or anything like that, but like the whole catchiness thing doesn't really, just the way that my brain is wired is that it's like a lot of the stuff that people consider to be really catchy and really easily metabolized and just easy listening, almost like passive like passive listening is like the easiest way to digest like heavy music, and that's the stuff that does really well, like a lot of the mid pace, really just like verse chorus solo bridge chorus kind of song structures and stuff. Like to me, I mean, like, I mean, that's, I guess, like, there's definitely a place for that. But when I'm trying to stimulate my mind musically and stuff, like all that to me is like that, a lot of it that's celebrated to me is actually, it just feels like offcuts of extreme music. It feels like a lot of fat, it feels like, you kind of take all the chunks off a dead animal and you make a sausage out of it and you sell these sausages in mass. And I don't know, it just, I'm happy for a lot of people's success, and I think it's great to see heavy music doing so well. But truth be told, I don't listen to a lot of really popular music because it just doesn't scratch that itch for me. So I do feel like a little bit of an alien on my own planet when it comes to a lot of what's super popular, because I just kind of don't get it. I just don't. I don't know. It could just be that I've been listening to this music for so long that I'm just, I don't know. I just, it's like some weird fetish. It's like you just kind of descend into these just like recesses and you're just like, ooh, this is niche. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a strange analogy to make, but yeah, it's probably just going to get more intricate and more weird and more refined and stuff the older I get and the more time I spend doing it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't read a lot of those magazines. I don't watch, Netflix. I don't, that popular culture avenue into this sphere of music is just something I feel kind of removed from, which, might be biting this band in the ass a little bit, but it's just the way it is.
Okay, so, and I definitely want to ask you the most obvious next question, but I have to put this in. One of the things that struck me about Aumicide is I couldn't listen to it like singles, if you know what I mean, right? The moment I heard it in continuity, it just flowed so seamlessly. I mean, for lack of better word, it was like a prog rock song, right? Which was so long, and if you just hear it from the middle, you won't get it. So it's that entire flow there. I'm guessing it was an intentional thing to be done, but take me through the sequencing and putting that entire piece together. How did you all kind of do that?
Oh, cool. Thanks. I'm glad that's landed because one of the biggest criticisms I have personally when I do revisit the album is maybe there should have been like a little bit of a change between certain sections of those ebbs and flows on the album, which is a good thing. It means that, I'm learning more from this album and it's just going to make the next one even stronger again. But that's great. We certainly did set out to hopefully achieve that. So that is really fantastic, and for those reasons too, it's also been incredibly challenging just to pick a couple of songs to release out to everybody, because it feels like we're just taking a few words out of a sentence and it doesn't really explain what this album's about. So the process really starts with just us putting together songs that we enjoy playing, that we really like, getting the song structures and just nailing down each particular song. And then during, I guess, yeah, through the rehearsals, we've kind of got this, we've got this cloud that we try and think about, perceptually of like, okay, well, which songs, it can be kind of like bracketed together or like tied together in like groups of 2 or 3 that feel really complementary. And then we without focusing too much on that, we then go through the demo process. Once we have all the songs recorded, we can then kind of shift them around in a playlist sequence. There are themes, so we definitely like the idea of having one intro instrumental song just to kind of set the vibe of the album, and then we typically also like to have an outro that also kind of it's a closure. It's like a final statement of the album as well. So that's a repeating theme, and so we were conscious of those aspects of the album at large when we were writing the album. But it really is just a matter of demoing things, and then between the demoing process and the album, we've still got some wiggle room. So if we need to extend a section of the song, if we need to add some ambiency interlude sections or something like that, then we still, we still have the freedom in the studio when we're working with people like Christian, because Christian also understands. What was a little different this time is we didn't actually intend on having a second quasi introduction song. So as you probably noticed, there's 10 songs. there's 5 songs on each side of the record, and there is an intro for each side of the record. The title track Aumicide is a secondary. It can either be considered to be an intro to the second side of the album, or it can be considered an interlude before the story arc changes. And that track was written in the studio while Christian was jumping out of the studio to go pick his car up from maintenance. Luca was in the drum room. I was in the control room, and we just asked Christian just to give us some live tracks, and we just messed around with a couple of things, and we pieced that together. But even then, Luca and I were still talking about this idea of, it would be cool to write a song that we perceive it to be almost kind of like a post-punky kind of, very simple, just a couple of, two major sections that then stand on top of each other. So if you listen to that song, that's what happens. There's a section A, there's a section B, and then section A and B are played over each other. Very simple. And yeah, with that formula, we were able to just kind of manifest it musically quite simply. So, but again, it was with the idea of just continuing the vibe of the record, because we still wanted it to sound quite sullen. And I'm not really sure how I would describe the vibe. It's definitely a feeling. But yeah. That's how we listen to records. We listen to records actively. My favorite thing in the world, my favorite way to listen to music in the world is to be really fucking stoned with the lights off and my headphones on and just go for a journey. Just listen to 30 to 60 minutes of music and just feel like I'm just going to another planet. So I've always tried to try and achieve that, and hopefully to somebody else listening to this record in that same state, we'll take them on a voyage and into the land of Aumicide. But yeah.
Okay, now you've literally segued into the next part. What I was going to ask you, considering you don't follow the magazines, you don't follow popular culture. What's the kind of music you've been listening to in the last 3 months, I would say, considering you didn't listen to Aumicide since then?
Putting me on the spot. Let's okay, Spotify is open. Okay, so most recently, it's interesting because we were talking about MTV, and this actually kind of ties in with my answer here. This week, I've been incredibly nostalgic for old video clips that I used to record from this late night television program called Rage. It was this Australian independent music channel. Well, it was part of an independent broadcasting channel, the Australian Broadcasting Channel. But from very late at night till 6 a.m., they would do these extended video clip sessions, and they would have these bands that would come in and they'd whatever. So I'd always film it, and it was an amazing way for me to discover bands like Ministry and Pantera and all that stuff. So being nostalgic with that, I actually I missed that. So this week I've actually been going through YouTube and I've been creating a Rage playlist that I remember from my youth, trying to recreate that so that I can just relive all that. So a lot of these songs on my playlist, or recently that I've been listening to it from that. So there's some Emperor. There's there's In Veracity. There is some Severus, of course, our homies, also on $20 spin. A lot of metal stuff, but apart from that, the non-metal stuff, I've been listening. I listened to the new Softkill record, and it actually sounds a little too happy for me. I kind of missed the Savior area, so that's my review. That's my needle drop on that one. I've been listening to a lot of a really fantastic band called Death Bells recently. I believe they're Australian, or at least they sound Australian. some Daft Punk. I always listen to Daft Punk whenever I'm in the gym or running around. Truth be told, a bit of Manowar's been creeping into my playlists recently, which I can't say I'm totally chuffed about, but I've just been feeling the steel in a big way. Marauder, again, just some killer hardcore for those morning workouts. Um, Carbon-based life forms, which I listen to a lot for work, just like very tranquil, very ambient. I wouldn't quite call it psytrance, but yeah, just very cool, very, very chill ambient music. Weezer, if you can believe. And I don't know, I'll cut it off at the next. Hopefully this one's not too, oh my God, there's Manowar popping up again. I won't mention that. And some Chris Isaac, actually. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite an eclectic mix of artists. But yeah, since I think I've brought this up a couple of times recently, so I grew up in the Middle East, and they used to have a French channel on the cable called MCM.
Okay.
They had a very similar thing where post 10, 11 p.m. they would play like really heavy music, and that's how I kind of
Oh, oh, that's cool. What were they playing? Do you
uh
remember?
so early 2000s was a lot of new metal stuff,
Hmm.
but I think the video that really shattered my brains was when I saw the video for Painkiller, because I was
Oh,
just like, what the fuck? I have not
dude.
seen or heard
Yeah.
anything like that. And yeah, it was just everything about the song, right? The drum intro, the video. It was just like, yeah, metal as fuck. I don't
There,
think
there
there's.
is there's a riff on this album. It's in the song Through the Hologram Cervix, where I was trying to channel just Painkiller. Like, how could I dilute Painkiller into one riff? And it's in there. It sounds like a Slayer riff, and then I played the entire Slayer riff with pinch harmonics, and it's just like it just takes it straight into Painkiller territory. But Painkiller was absolutely included on my list as well of my Rage YouTube um, little channel that I'm putting together. So yeah,
Yeah.
man, what an album! I would have to say, like, if there's just like a traditional metal essential record, I'm not going with Master of Puppets. I'm going with Painkiller
Yeah.
from Judas Priest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. To wrap up, I mean, we literally are doing this because also that you're going on tour, which I really like how it's titled the Galactic Gore tour, which Zoth, Atl, uh, Angelic, Desolation. Yeah, I mean, there's one aspect I know for sure you're going to look forward to is just like eating food from different parts of North America. But what else are you looking forward to from the tour?
Look, oh look, my favorite part of this is just descending into just total chuttery with my best buddies. You know, I mean, you reach this equilibrium of just fatigue, but omnipresent excitement, and what you know, the wonder that comes with travel. That it's so fun to experience that with your best buddies and make other buddies as well every night, and kind of catch up with people that you haven't seen since the last tours, or you've been internet friends with for a long time, and that you finally get to meet and stuff. So just the whole social aspect of it, I love. um the food is good, but we also often try and head into record stores when we can, and just to do a little bit of digging through some of the crates there. I'm also going to try to do some VHS hunting, if I can, but obviously there's constraints with time, and we need to make sure that we're getting into the venues early enough. But yeah, if I was to summarize, it would definitely just be just the whole hanging out aspect, just getting out of Vancouver and just going into the sun with just big vibes, big homies. Yeah, and just kind of eating and riffing your way through America. It doesn't get any better than that.
And I also saw that you're playing a gig with Dying Fetus, Full of Hell. Their album is actually really good. I had a chance to speak to Dylan. So for those listening to this episode, that's an episode coming out the following week, Full of Hell. And yeah, you've got quite a stacked lineup that's happening in May. Do you have any more shows planned that you can talk about at the moment?
Yeah, so after the Galactic Gore tour with I think is it Atoll or is it Atoll? I'm not sure. I'll learn this week. We've got not only that Dying Fetus, Full of Hell, 200 Stab Wounds show, which is going to be crazy. But we've also got Northwest Terrorfest in Seattle. And that's a 3-day festival over there with some incredibly sick bands. Repulsion are playing, and yeah, it's going to be a nuts one. So that's going to be really cool. We do have some other plans for more US dates, but I can't really unzip my mouth on that just yet. But yeah, I will say to anybody that's listening that are in other parts of America that we hope to also be hanging out and eating your burgers very shortly. So yeah, prepare the food, prepare the hangs. More news on that shortly. But yeah, apart from that, I think outside of shows, as I mentioned earlier, we do have more material written. So we're kind of deliberating whether the next step is to record enough songs that we can kind of drip feed as singles to tie us over to the next album, or whether we just kind of want to invest those into the next album. As you have very clearly understood, the vibe with this band is it's conceptual, and it's there's a lot of narrative and thought that goes into these. So compressing and diluting larger ideas into single individual songs could potentially be done. It could be kind of cheesy to do it in chapters per se. So I'm not sure if that'll work, but it's not totally off the table. But yeah, in any other way, we'll still be writing songs, and yeah, just getting those ready to figure out what to do with those. But yeah, more shows, more riffs, and hopefully more American flavored burgers.
Awesome. So lots to look forward to from the Atræ Bilis camp. Any final words?
Thank you for the interview. It's great to chat with you again. Yeah, I don't know, to anybody listening, thank you if you've made it to the end of this. Appreciate you tuning in and staying with us. I hope you've heard the album, and I just hope that to anybody that has put their energy into the album, that it's just kind of coming back in spades and just kind of returning the energy that you put into it, because we'll put a little bit of effort into it, so hopefully it brings you some enjoyment. And if there's anything anybody kind of wants to understand about the record or whatever, like, come and have a chat with us at one of the merch booths, or comment on something and ask us, or send us a DM. We're a pretty approachable bunch of guys, so yeah, just hang out, and yeah, looking forward to meeting you all soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David. Really appreciate the chat.
Absolutely, mate. Me too. Thank you so much.
And that was David from Atræ Bilis. Do check them out on tour if you're in North America, US at the moment. Really looking forward to more touring from them. And that's it from me at the Trendcrusher podcast. Do let me know what do you think of the last few episodes that I've been playing death metal. Gonna switch things up slightly next week. You already heard in the chat I spoke to Dylan from Full of Hell, so good episode to look forward to next week. I'll see you all then. Cheers.